Now, we're not done just yet. We still have quite a few things we need to add to this application. So we've added employees to our list, but now we need to compute the salaries for all those employees. Now, the way we're going to do this is we're going to have another button where we click on it and it will compute the salaries. But what we're going to do behind the scenes is we're going to create a function that returns the salary, and then we'll have our button just call that function. So what we're going to do now is we'll create the function. So we're going to do private function. And I need to give this a name, so we're going to just call it, we'll call it salary. And then we need two parameters. So we need the hours and the rate. So we're going to do by val hours as double. And then by val rate as double. And we need to say that this is going to return something. So we need to say as, and this should also be a double. Okay, so there's our function. And yeah, the green squiggly line, it doesn't return a value. We're missing a return statement. We'll fix that, don't worry. So what we're going to say is, well, we're just going to make this very simple. We can say return. And to compute the salary, we just take the hours and multiply it by the rate. That's it. So there is our salary function. Okay, so we got that. So now we need the button to actually handle computing the salaries for all the employees. So let's go back. So we'll save this first to make sure we don't have any problems. So now we'll go back to the design view, and we need to add a new button. And then we're going to put this down here, and we're going to make this a bigger button. Why not? Oh, right about here. Yeah, we can do that. Actually, no, we can, but we'll make it normal size. All right, so we got our button, and we're going to change the text to compute salaries. Now we do need to make this a little bit bigger. All right, so we'll adjust this to compute salaries. There we go. So maybe we'll move this back here, and I guess we'll increase the size of add employee just to make things line up a little bit better. Yeah, I can live with that. All right, now let's change the name of the button. So we go down here and we'll say BT salary. Yeah, that's fine. So now we can double click on this, and now we have our sub that handles the event of clicking on that button. So we need to do some stuff with this. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at each employee in our list. We're going to compute the salary, and then we update some stuff. So the idea behind this is we're going to have to update the salary value for each employee in our list to make this work. So the way we're going to do this is we have to be careful because we can't use our for each loop because we know that we cannot make any changes to the list. We can't act because what we're doing is we're copying the values. But what we can do is use a normal for loop. So I should be allowed to do this. So we do for, and we'll do index as integer, because we can take advantage of some information here, because even though this is a list, we do have some information. We know that the first index of our list always has to be 0. So we can do a normal for loop to say 0, 2, and we know the last index of our list has to be the number of items in the list minus 1. So if you remember, we have employee list dot count minus 1. Okay, and then I'm going to put in index right here. So this is we're using a normal for loop, so we can do that in a list. We're not limited to just using a for each loop. And what we should be able to do in this for loop is actually make changes in our list. So what we're going to do is I'm going to actually create a couple variables and pass them instead of just typing out the full arguments, just to make the code a little bit easier. So we're going to do dim, and I'm going to say hours, and we're going to set that equal to employee list index dot hours. So this is pretty neat what we just did. So what did we just do here? Well, to access a specific element of our list, I could treat it like an array, because remember we talked about before, whenever we have a list, we can treat individual elements just like individual array elements. So I could put the name of the list, a pair of parentheses, and then my index. And then since that whole thing is an employee structure, I can just do that dot hours. So I can do the same thing for the rate. So I'm going to do dim rate. I'm going to say equals employee list index dot pay rate. Okay. So then I can assign the salary to the result of my salary function. So I can say, if I remember, if this works correctly, it should. So I can do employee list index dot salary equals, then I can call my salary function and pass hours and rate. And this will do that for each employee. And then, okay, so we get a blue squiggly line. So what's going on here? Expression is a value and therefore cannot be the target of an assignment. Okay, so it looks like we're encountering the same issue that we would have with a for each loop, but that's fine. What we can, so there is another trick that we can do. So this is not a problem. So we're going to have to fix a couple things here. I was hoping we didn't have to do this, but it looks like we don't really have much of a choice. So what we're going to do is we'll make a couple of changes. So instead of trying to directly change the salary item, what we'll do instead is we'll create a new employee item. We'll update the values of it, and then we can adjust the element itself. So here's what I'm saying. We can adjust the item in the list, but it's not letting us adjust individual members of that list. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to create a new temporary employee. So we're going to do that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say temp.name equals employee list index.name. And then instead of using the create new variables for hours and rate, we'll just say temp.hours is our hours here. And then temp.pay rate equals employee list dot pay rate. I was hoping we didn't have to do this, but I guess we don't really have much of a choice. So then I can do temp.salary, set it equal to, and then now I can call my salary function and do temp.hours, then temp.pay rate. And then I should be able to do this, employee list index, and assign it temp. That should work. I don't see any blue squiggly lines. Now, I was hoping there was another way around, but guess not. But this works just fine. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to add a message box after the for loop here. And I'm just going to do message box. And I'll just say salaries have been computed. That way we know that it actually worked. Okay. That looks pretty straightforward. So let's just click on start. And just make sure we don't get any runtime errors. So I'm just going to add a couple of things. We'll do mats. We'll do 40 hours, $10 an hour. We'll add the employee. And then let's just do one more. Mark, 10 hours, $10 an hour. So we still have our list here. We'll click on compute salaries. Salaries have been computed. And granted, we don't see what those salaries are just yet. But what we will see in just a second here is how we would actually display it in this form. We're going to show a different way of handling that.